Hello and welcome to the first episode of History Bubble. Here we'll go through all the internationally recognized sovereign nations of the world in alphabetical order. So first off is Afghanistan. Afghanistan, a country that's been in war for the last 40 years, previously was ruled by communism, and before that was a buffer zone between two of the largest colonial empires at the time. At that time, what we now know as Afghanistan was controlled by the Safavid Persians, but the Hothaks from what now Afghanistan rebelled and conquered much of the Persians' territory. But the Hothaks were conquerors, not statesmen, and they could not control all their people, so the Persians under Nader Shah overthrew them and established Persia again. Nader Shah continued his campaign into Mughal India, but only 10 years after he had conquered Afghanistan, he was assassinated, breaking up his empire. So the Afghans called a Loya Jirga, or Grand Assembly, to choose their new leader. A Loya Jirga is basically an assembly where small local leaders gather together to choose a new grand leader. They chose Ahmad Shah Durrani as their new leader. He was a general under Nader Shah and was from a wealthy and influential Pashtun family. Many people say that this was when Afghanistan was created, but some also argue that was Hothaks who created Afghanistan. After a year of rule, Ahmad got the most Afghan tribes to Yemen either by conquest or diplomacy. Ahmad continued his conquest into non-Afghan Persian territory, but conquest there was pretty easy too for him, because the Persian Empire was dying, and the Durrani Empire, the empire that Ahmad Shah Durrani created, continued the campaign into Mughal India. The empire there was also dying. There Ahmad did not come for land, but he came for plunder and gold. This invasion was fairly successful, and in 1757 they even sacked the Mughal capital of Delhi. Just 10 years later, Ahmad died and his son Timur succeeded him. After Ahmad's death, many of the tribes and local rulers of Afghanistan wanted independence. The loyalties wavered and were uncertain, and some even broke out in rebellion. This led to most of Timur's rule being suppressing rebellion and securing loyalties. Timur suppressed most rebellion, but the people under him would still jump at any possibility for influence and power. And possibilities they got. Because after Timur's death, there was a succession crisis. His sons Saman, Muhammad, Suya, Ali, and Ayab all fought for the Afghan throne. This led to many of the tribes trying to leave the empire or improve their situation, especially those in the outskirts. They did not see much resistance because the Afghan troops were fighting a civil war for one of Timur's sons. Most notable of these tribes leaving the empire were the Sikhi. The imperial army was also very depleted because of the civil war and trying to keep control of the empire. Timur's sons were also mostly bad rulers. For example, Muhammad, one of his sons, assassinated a mostly loyal, powerful tribal leader in the country. But his son and successor, Dost Muhammad Khan, was all but loyal and conquered Kabul for himself, basically leaving him in charge of Afghanistan. And after a few years of trying to show everyone that he was the true ruler, Dost Muhammad got into war with the Sikhi Empire, a tribe who only recently left the country. The Sikhi wanted to install one of Timur's sons, Suya, as a puppet, but the Emirate of Afghanistan, as it was now called, won the war against them. Now I think we have to talk about something called the Great Game. It was simply put a colonial race in Central Asia between Russia and the UK. They both wanted land in the area but feared conflict with the other. The UK wanted to conquer Afghanistan because if the Russian did it, they could easily use it as a base of operation to invade India at a later date. The UK invaded Afghanistan, claiming they would retake the throne for Suya Durrani. For the attack, the Brits brought 21,000 soldiers, 38,000 camp followers, and a large bunch of cattle. After stopping at Kandahar, the British army continued to besiege Ghazni and took over the city. They continued marching and defeated the main Afghan army on the way. Soon the British won the war and established Suya as their puppet. The Afghans disliked Suya and British rule because, number one, they were foreigner and of a different religion. 2. Suya was a cruel man, often comparing his people to dogs, and they established a permanent home for British and their families. The Afghans rose in rebellion under Dost's son, Akbar, not Dost because he had been captured in the previous fighting. At that time there were very few British troops left in Afghanistan to fight them and to handle the rebellion, so they withdrew. But when the Brits withdrew, the Afghans attacked and killed them. They killed both soldiers and civilians, and in only 7 days they had killed around 16,500 people. Only 4,500 of those killed were soldiers, the rest civilians, and this arguably counts as the biggest massacre in Afghan history. The war was over and Dost regained the throne, and during second reign he tried to secure loyalties of local tribes and rulers. He also tried to increase the relations with the Brits to prevent a second war with them. At that time, the Brits also conquered the Sikh Empire, and now they bordered with Afghanistan. After Dost's death, there were a bit of inner fighting, but his son Sher Ali Khan took over the throne. The Russians soon bordered Afghanistan, and the relation with the British eased, so now Afghanistan couldn't work as a buffer zone anymore. The Russians sent an emissary to Afghanistan, much to the reluctance of Sher, but when the Brits did the same, Sher threatened them. This soon spiraled out of control, leading to the Second Anglo-Afghan War, which was an easy victory for the Brits. And so they won the first phase of the war, leading to the Treaty of Ganmark. This set a new border between the countries and made Afghanistan a British puppet. This is also the reason for the Wakhan Corridor. The border was set there to not border with Russia. Soon the Afghans rose in rebellion, continuing the war until a second phase, which the Brits won. Only to a few losses to the surprise of the attack. The throne also passed to Akbar Khan, called the Iron Amir. Akbar ruled strictly, but he also tried to modernize the country by implementing more machinery and hiring foreign emissaries to help him to modernize it. He also stabilized the country, creating a normal succession for a change. Habibullah, his successor, also tried to modernize the country and stayed neutral during World War I. And after his death, Amnullah Khan came into power, but it would take a few years for him to be called Emir. Declared his independence from the British, and so the Third Anglo-Afghan War had begun. At the beginning of the war, it went well for the Afghans since the Brits have not many forces in India after the First World War. The Brits had one big advantage: planes. They used them to bomb both the Afghans who were advancing in India and Afghan cities like Kabul and Kandahar. But the war ended before a clear victory could be concluded, resulting in Afghan independence and a more strict Durrani line. Well, that about wraps it up. See you soon for part 2.